Before we start, if you enjoy the story, please leave a like and check if you're subscribed. The world came back in fragments. Fire, twisted metal, the acrid smell of burning insulation. Silas Grant forced his eyes open, pinned against the cockpit controls. Through the cracked viewpoint, an alien jungle pressed close. Then he heard it, a high, keening wail. A child crying. Silas shoved against the collapsed panel. It gave with a groan, and he dragged himself free. Blood ran warm down his face as he stumbled toward the passenger compartment through choking smoke. The shuttle had split open. In the aft section, between twisted seats, he spotted movement. The cub couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, covered in vibrant red fur. Pointed ears lay flat against its skull as it pulled desperately at debris pinning its leg. Enormous amber eyes locked onto Silas. "Hey, I've got you," Silas said. The cub snapped tiny things at him. "Ember!" The voice cracked like a whip. Silas turned to find her trapped beneath a support beam, the Matriarch. Even pinned, even bleeding, she radiated command. Her humanoid form was devastatingly beautiful, all elegant lines and flowing red hair, but her eyes held only fury. "Get away from my child, primitive." Silas ignored her. He held out his hand slowly to Ember. "I'm going to help. Just hold still." "I gave you an order." Ali Wren's voice rose. "Free me first. I am matriarch of the third house, and you will." The fuel line ruptured. Orange flame bloomed in the forward compartment. Silas moved. He gripped the debris, metal biting into his palms as he lifted. The cub scrambled free, and Silas scooped the small form into his arms. "No! Bring Ember to me immediately." He glanced at Ellerin. The beam across her torso was massive, and flames were spreading. "I'll be back," he said, and ran. The jungle hit him like a wall of heat. He set the cub down 30 meters from the wreck. "Stay." Ember's ears flattened, but the cub obeyed. Silas plunged back into the inferno. He found Ellerin still pinned, her features twisted with rage and fear. "You dare leave me for—" "Save it." He gripped the beam. "On 3, pull yourself out. 1, 2, 3. He lifted with everything he had. The beam rose inches, enough. Ellerin dragged herself free. "Move!" They cleared the shuttle as fuel tanks exploded. The blast threw them forward. Heat washed over Silas's back as he sprawled half across Ellerin, shielding her. She shoved him off with a snarl. "How dare you, Ember!" The cub launched itself at Ellerin, chirping frantically. She gathered Ember close, checking for injuries. Then she turned to Silas with eyes like frozen amber. "You disobeyed a direct command." Silas sat up. "You're welcome. I did not thank you." Pilot Saurian would have. Pilot Saurian is dead. He'd seen what was left of the Fox alien pilot. "I'm what you've got." Ali Wren's ears flattened. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. "Then assess our situation, human. That is what your kind does, yes? Fumble through crises with your primitive instincts." Silas stood, surveying their surroundings. The jungle stretched endlessly. Night was falling. "We need shelter, obviously." Ali Wren struggled to her feet, hand pressed to her ribs. "Once I activate the distress beacon, we simply wait for—" "There is no beacon." Silas pulled the shattered device from his pocket. Then he showed her the Matriarch's communicator, screen spider-webbed with cracks. "Dead." "No," she whispered. Ellerin stared at the ruined equipment, breathing faster. Ember pressed against her leg. She looked at Silas, expression hardening. "Then construct shelter while I tend to Ember. At first light, we establish a signal fire, and signal fire tells everything in this jungle where to find us." Silas was already gathering materials. "We stay quiet, move at dawn. There's a research station about 40 kilometers northeast. You expect me to trek through wilderness like some savage?" Silas met her eyes. "I expect you to survive." He worked as darkness fell, constructing shelter from hull plating and vegetation. Ellerin watched with disdain, offering cutting observations. The shelter took shape, rough but solid, built into a massive tree root. He gathered bioluminescent moss for light and divided his ration bar 3 ways. Alaran accepted hers as though offended. Ember devoured the food, then curled against Silas's side instead of Alaran's. The matriarch's tail lashed. Ember, come here. The cube chirped but didn't move. Fingers tangled in Silas's jacket. Ember, still nothing. Alaran's jaw tightened. The jungle came alive after dark. Strange calls echoed. Things moved in the undergrowth. Silas sat with his back against the wall, survival knife on his knee. Alaran positioned herself opposite, Ember finally between them. Hours passed. Silas watched the darkness, reading patterns of sound. A predator called. Others answered. Too many. Too close. Get some rest, he said. I'll keep watch. I do not require a primitive to something large move through the trees, circling them. Silas's grip tightened. He rose slowly, more movement, coordinated. Then he saw tracks in the earth. Each print was the size of his head, claw marks gouging deep. Alaran appeared beside him, breath catching. She pulled out a scanning device. The database has no record. Her voice faltered. These shouldn't exist on Verdant 7. Well, they do now. More tracks appeared, forming a circle around the shelter. Whatever made them was patient, intelligent, hunting. Ember whimpered. Alaran moved to her child, gathering the small form close. She looked at Silas, and for the first time, he saw something besides contempt. Fear. Can you kill them? Silas studied the tracks. The patterns. He thought about the single knife, the 2 injured civilians, and 40 kilometers of hostile jungle. No, he said honestly, but I can keep us alive until morning. After that, we run. Ember pressed tight against Alaran's chest. She watched Silas position himself at the entrance, knife ready, his body a barrier between her family and whatever circled in the darkness. Something massive brushed against nearby trees. Branches cracked. The circling tightened. And Silas Grant settled in to face the night, ready to prove that primitive didn't mean defenseless. Dawn broke through the canopy in shafts of golden light. Silas stretched his neck, working out knots from sitting upright all night. The predators had moved on, but he'd stayed vigilant until the birds began their calls. Alaran woke with a start, checking on Ember. The cub was still asleep, curled in a tight ball. She looked at Silas and something flickered across her face before her mask slid back. You actually stayed awake, said I would. She stood, wincing. How far to this research station? 40 kilometers. 3 days if we're lucky. Silas fashioned a carrying sling from salvaged fabric. When Ember woke and saw the carrier, the cub climbed onto Silas's back instead of Alaran's. The matriarch's ears flattened, but she said nothing. They set out through the jungle. Silas led with Ember clinging to his shoulders, Alaran following in tense silence. He moved with purpose, reading the terrain. Twice he stopped them, hand raised, until some unseen danger passed. How do you know where to go? Alaran asked. Your technology is non-existent. Don't need technology to read broken branches or fresh prints. Silas pointed to scrape marks on a tree trunk. Something big passed through here recently, heading east. We go west. Desk work. Experience. By midday, Silas found a stream, testing the water before declaring it safe. He showed Alaran the signs. Clear flow, certain plants nearby, small fish in the shallows. Your people must spend years learning such things, she said. Some do. Others just pay attention. He filled their containers. What do your people do when technology fails? It doesn't fail. We engineer redundancies. But if it did? Alaran was quiet, watching water flow over stones. I suppose we would adapt. Intelligence isn't the same as adaptability. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Ember jumped into the shallows, pouncing at fish with pure delight. The cub's laughter was bright and clear. Aliran's expression softened as she watched her child play. Ember has never seen a natural stream before, Aliran said quietly. Our world is entirely managed. Sounds efficient. It is. She paused. And Cyril, perhaps. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, too fragile to name. They continued through the afternoon. Silas taught Alaran to move quietly, to test her footing, to use the jungle's rhythms. She was a quick study. You're doing well, he said. I am matriarch of the third house. I do everything well. But her tail swished in pleasure. They reached a river, wide and fast. I feel the light flowing mystics of the painting sequences from the tower. We crossed there. Alaran looked at the churning water. Your certainty is based on what? See how the water breaks differently over those rocks? Means they're stable. And those plants on the far bank need purchase, which means solid ground. She studied the river with new eyes. I would never have seen that. You would, with practice. Silas secured Ember's sling, then waded in. The water was cold and strong. Halfway across, he reached back. Your hand. Eliren hesitated, then took it. Her palm was warm, her grip strong. He guided her forward, his arm round her waist when the current surged. They moved together, his strength anchoring her, her hip pressed against his side. Her breath was warm on his neck. Silas was acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched. Almost there, he said, voice rougher than intended. They reached the far bank, but neither immediately let go. Alaran looked up at him, water dripping from her hair, her amber eyes wide. Her lips parted. Ember chirped, breaking the moment. They separated quickly. We should keep moving, Silas said. But as they walked, Alaran stayed closer than before, and when branches blocked the path, her hand found his shoulder for balance more often than necessary. Evening approached. Silas found a defensible position backed by a cliff face. He built shelter while Alaran foraged for the edible plants he'd pointed out. She returned with a careful selection, avoiding the toxic varieties. You learned fast. I do everything well, but she was smiling. They prepared a meager meal. Ember ate quickly, then curled up, exhausted. Silas built a small fire, shielded and smokeless. Alarine sat across from him, firelight playing across her features. She'd removed some of her damaged attire, and her form-fitting undersuit revealed curves that Silas had been trying not to notice. Tell me about your world, she said. Earth, complicated, beautiful in some places, struggling in others. We're still figuring things out. But you survive without our technology. We survive because we adapt, because we're stubborn. He met her eyes. Because we don't give up. She studied him. I misjudged you, Silas Grant. You are competent. She paused, perhaps even admirable, in your primitive way. He laughed. I'll take it. Her tail swished. They sat in comfortable silence. Do you have someone, she asked, on your world? No, the job doesn't leave room for that. What about you? No. Her voice was soft. My position requires sacrifice. Personal desires are inappropriate for someone of my station. Sounds lonely. It is. The admission seemed to surprise her. But necessary. My people require leaders who are above such base needs. Base needs like companionship? Like emotion coding judgment? Emotion doesn't cloud judgment, he said. It's part of being alive. Thunder rumbled. Rain began to fall. Within moments, it came in sheets, overwhelming their shelter. They moved inside, crowding into the small space with Ember asleep between them. Alarane's fur was soaked, pressed flat. She was shivering. Come here, Silas said. I'm fine. You're freezing. I run warmer. He opened his jacket, just until the storm passes. She hesitated. Another shiver decided it. She moved closer, and he wrapped the jacket around them both. She tensed, then gradually relaxed against his warmth. "This is highly inappropriate," she murmured. "Yeah, I am matriarch of the third house. I know. You are human. Notice that too." But she didn't pull away. Her head came to rest against his shoulder, her ear pressed to his chest. Her hand settled on his stomach, fingers splayed. The storm raged. Ember slept, and Alaren stayed curled against Silas, sharing warmth and something neither wanted to name. Morning arrived with oppressive heat. Alaren woke first, still pressed against Silas, his arm draped across her shoulders. She remained still, studying his face, the strong jaw, the small scar above his eyebrow, the softness in his sleeping expression. Her fingers had wound themselves into his shirt during the night. She extracted herself carefully, not wanting to face what had passed between them in the storm's intimacy. Ember stirred, blinking sleepy eyes. The Q crawled over to Alaren, nuzzling against her. She held her child close, grounding herself in duty and purpose. "We should not have done that," she whispered to Ember. "It was merely survival, body heat, nothing more." But Ember looked at her with knowing eyes. Silas woke moments later, immediately scanning their surroundings. Always alert, he caught her watching and offered a slight smile. Storms passed. Yes. The word hung awkward between them. He began preparing for the day's journey without acknowledging what had happened. Alaren found herself both grateful and disappointed. They traveled through increasingly difficult terrain. The jungle grew denser, the heat more brutal. By afternoon, Ember was flagging, the cub's energy depleted. "We need to rest," Alaren said. Silas checked the sky, jaw tight. "Another hour. There's higher ground ahead. Ember is exhausted, and we're being followed." Alaren's spine stiffened. "How long?" "Since this morning. 3 of them, maybe 4. Keeping their distance." He adjusted Ember's sling. "They're intelligent, patient, waiting for us to make a mistake." Fear lanced through her, but she kept her voice steady. "Keep moving. Don't let them know we know." His hand found the small of her back. "Act natural. Talk to me." "About what? Anything. Tell me about the third house." She described the crystalline spires of her homeworld, the complex political hierarchies, the rigid codes that governed every aspect of her life. Silas listened, asked questions, kept them moving at a pace that looked casual but ate up ground. "Sounds exhausting," he said. "It's simply how things are. Order, structure, everyone knowing their place. And where's your place? Above most, below some." She paused. "Always alone," his hand pressed slightly firmer against her back. Not quite comfort, but acknowledgement. They reached higher ground as the sun descended. Silas found what he was looking for, the remains of an old research outpost, half consumed by jungle but with bones of metal and concrete still standing. Alaren's hope surged. The station? No, just an old survey post. He studied the ruins. But it'll do. The main structure was surprisingly intact. Silas moved through it methodically, checking sightlines, weak points, escape routes. He was in his element now, focused and capable in a way that made Alaren's pulse quicken. "We make our stand here," he said. "They'll come after dark." "You're certain?" "Yeah." He met her eyes. "Get Ember settled. Drink water. You'll need your strength." Alaren wanted to argue, but the truth was she trusted his judgment now. She did as he suggested while Silas fortified their position with brutal efficiency. He found an old emergency locker, still sealed. Inside were corroded tools, ancient medical supplies, and, incredibly, a partial charge cell. He held it up, examining it. "Might be able to rig something with this," he muttered. He stopped, swaying slightly. "Silas?" "I'm fine." But his hand went to his side where his shirt was dark with blood. Alaren was on her feet instantly. "You're injured. Why didn't you say something?" "Wasn't important?" "Not important." She pulled his shirt up, revealing a deep gash along his ribs. "This happened in the river. You've been bleeding all day. Had other priorities." Her hands trembled as she examined the wound. The medical supplies were ancient, but she found disinfectant that might still work, brittle bandages. She cleaned the injury with surprisingly gentle hands, and Silas watched her face as she worked. "You're good at this," he said quietly. "I had training all highborn or taught basic medical procedures." She applied the bandage carefully, though I never expected to use it on a human. "Disappointed?" She looked up at him. They were close now, her hand still on his skin, his eyes dark and intent. The air between them felt charged. "No," she whispered, "not disappointed." His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek. Her breath caught. For a moment, the world narrowed to just this: his touch, her racing heart, the heat building between them. Then Ember whimpered, and reality crashed back. Alarin pulled away. "You should rest while you can." "Can't. Need to finish the defenses." "Then let me help." They worked together as darkness fell, Silas directing while Aliren followed his instructions. She was learning to anticipate his needs, to understand the logic of his improvised fortifications. When their hands brushed passing materials, neither pulled away as quickly as they should have. Full dark brought the sounds. Movement in the jungle, deliberate and coordinated. Silas positioned Alreen at the most defensible corner with Ember tucked behind her. "Stay here, no matter what," he said. "Protect Ember. What about you? I'll draw them off, keep them away from you both." "That's suicide." He smiled, fierce and reckless. "Maybe, but it's the best chance you've got." Before she could protest, he was moving, disappearing into the shadows. Aliren crouched with Ember, every sense straining. She heard them now, the predators circling, testing the perimeter. The first one came through the eastern wall. Massive, scaled, with too many limbs and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Silas met it with a makeshift spear, driving it back. Two more appeared from different angles. Aliren watched him fight, this human she'd called primitive, and saw nothing but deadly grace. He moved like the jungle itself, fluid, unpredictable, using every advantage. But there were too many, and he was injured. One of the creatures broke through his line, heading straight for her position. Aliren raised the metal bar Silas had given her. But as it lunged, Silas was there, slamming into its side, both crashing into the wall. The creature's tail whipped around, catching him across the chest. He went down hard. "Silas!" Aliren moved without thinking, leaving Ember's side to engage the creature. She struck with the bar, putting all her strength behind it. The creature turned on her, and she saw death in those mirror eyes. Then Ember was there, small but fierce, biting and clawing at the creature's legs. It whirled, focused on the easier prey. "No!" Both Aliren and Silas shouted together. Silas surged up despite his injuries, tackling the creature away from Ember. They went down in a tangle of violence. Aliren grabbed her child, pulling Ember back, then turned to help Silas. He'd driven his spear through the creature's throat. It thrashed, dying but still dangerous. Alan added her weight, helping him pin it until it finally went still. They collapsed together in the blood and dirt, gasping. More sounds came from outside, the other predators, emboldened. This was just the beginning. Silas struggled to his feet, bleeding from new wounds. Aliren rose beside him, realizing with crystal clarity that she would die here. They both would, but she would die fighting alongside him. This impossible human who'd shown her what it meant to truly live. She reached for his hand, and he took it. "Together," she said. "Together." The predators rushed in. They fought back to back, Silas with his bloodied spear, Aliren with her metal bar. The predators came in waves, testing their defenses, probing for weakness. Each time one fell, two more seemed to take its place. Silas moved with brutal efficiency despite his wounds, every strike calculated. Aliren found herself matching his rhythm, learning from his economy of motion. When he pivoted left, she covered right. When he needed space, she gave it. "The charge cell!" Silas shouted over the chaos. "In the locker! Can you rig it to overload?" "What?" Aliren ducked under his slashing claw. "I've never! You're brilliant! Remember!" Figure it out! He drove forward, drawing the predator's attention while Allarine scrambled to the emergency locker. Her hand shook as she examined the charged cell, mind racing through principles of energy containment. The cell was old, unstable. If she bypassed the safety protocols, reversed the polarity, Allarine! She looked up to see Silas surrounded, bleeding from a dozen cuts, holding his ground. Ember was shrieking from their shelter. Terror and fury mixed. Allarine made her choice. She connected two wires that should never touch, felt the cell begin to vibrate. Heat built rapidly. 10 seconds, maybe 15. Silas, get down! He dropped flat. She hurled the cell into the center of the predator pack and threw herself over Ember. The explosion was blinding. When her ears stopped ringing, Allarine raised her head to find the predators scattered, some dead, others retreating into the jungle. Silence settled over the ruins. Silas? He was on his knees, covered in debris and blood. But alive. Their eyes met across the wreckage, and something fierce and primal passed between them. Then he collapsed. Allarine was moving before thought, crossing to him, pulling him upright. His breathing was labored, each inhale a struggle. Too much blood loss, too many injuries. Don't you dare, she hissed, dragging him toward their shelter. Don't you dare leave us now. Ember helped as much as a small child could, bringing water, finding clean cloth. Allarine worked through the night, treating wounds, monitoring his breathing, willing him to survive. Near dawn, his eyes finally opened. Did we win? He rasped. We're alive. That's victory enough. She held water to his lips. You need to rest. Can't. Need to keep moving. Reach the station. You're not moving anywhere for at least a day. Her voice was sharp with fear disguised as command. Even your stubbornness has limits, human. He smiled weakly. Thought I was competent now. Maybe even admirable. You're a fool. A reckless, impossible fool. Her hand trembled as she touched his face. But yes, admirable. His hand covered hers, holding it against his cheek. Neither spoke. Ember curled between them, small body pressed to both, trying to hold them together. Silas slept through most of the day. Allarine kept watch, her mind wandering through dangerous territory. She thought about the political alliances waiting at home, the advantageous matches her position required. She thought about rigid hierarchies and a life mapped out since birth. Then she looked at Silas, this human who'd saved her child, who'd fought impossible odds, who'd shown her that strength came in forms her people had forgotten existed. When he woke again, she'd made a decision. We need to talk about what happens when we're rescued, she said. Silas sat up, carefully, wincing. I know. You go back to your third house. I go back to whatever station hires me next. We forget this happened. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. You said it yourself. Your people require leaders above base needs. Alarine's ears flattened. Don't what? Don't pretend this was nothing. Don't reduce what we've survived together to mere circumstance. She moved closer, her amber eyes intense. I've spent my entire life following rules, doing what was expected, being what others demanded. And for what? To be alone? To never feel what I feel when you touch me? Allarine, I don't know what happens when we reach civilization. I don't know how to navigate the politics, the prejudices, the impossibility of us. She took his hand, pressing it to her chest where her heart raced. But I know I don't want to pretend you're nothing to me. Silas stared at her, something vulnerable raking through his usual composure. You're a matriarch. I'm a human co-pilot with no house, no status, no future beyond the next job. Then we'll build a future. Together, she leaned forward, her forehead touching his. Unless you don't want, he kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was hunger and desperation and days of tension finally breaking. His hand tangled in her hair, hers gripped his shoulders, and for a moment there was nothing but heat and need and the taste of her gasps against his mouth. They broke apart, breathing hard. Allarine's eyes were wide, her lips parted. I want. Silas said, voice rough. I've wanted since I saw you fight beside me, since you trusted me enough to let go. You were never primitive. She kissed him again, softer this time, just different, better, in ways that matter. Ember made a pleased chirping sound, and they both looked down to find the cub watching with obvious satisfaction. How long until we can travel? Aliren asked, not moving from Silas's embrace. Tomorrow, maybe, if we take it slow. He traced patterns on her back. The station should have working communications. We can call for rescue, get you both home safely. And then we figure it out. Together. He met her eyes. I'm not letting you go without a fight. Good. She settled against his chest, careful of his injuries, because I've discovered I quite like fighting alongside you. They rested through the afternoon, speaking in quiet voices about futures that seemed both implied. Rested, they liked the flow, they drove together. Alarine told him about her world's political structure, the challenges they'd face. Silas talked about human space, the prejudices they'd encounter. They'll say, I corrupted you, he said. Let them. I'm matriarch of the Verd House. I don't answer to gossips. Your people might remove you from power. Then I'll find a new purpose. She looked up at him. I've been thinking about human-Volpari relations, about cultural exchange programs, about showing both our peoples what we've learned. Volpari? He asked. My species. Her tail wrapped around his wrist, though I suppose you've been too busy keeping us alive to ask proper questions. I've had other priorities. You could teach this, she said. Survival courses for Volpari who've forgotten how to exist without technology. You asking me to be an instructor, I'm asking you to be my partner, in whatever form that takes. She met his eyes, teaching, exploring, building bridges between our species, or just being with me and Ember, whatever you want. Silas was quiet for a long moment. I've never had anyone ask me what I want before. And now I want everything. You, Ember, a future that's more than just survival. He turned to face her fully. I want to wake up next to you. I want to watch Ember grow. I want to prove to both our species that we're better together than apart. Aliren smiled, fierce and bright. Then that's what we'll do. They sealed the promise with another kiss, deeper this time, hands exploring with building confidence. When they finally pulled apart, both were flushed, breathing hard. We should sleep. Aliren said, though her hands were still on him. Long journey tomorrow. We should, Silas agreed, not moving. Neither slept for some time. When they finally did, it was tangled together. Ember nestled between them, 3 survivors who'd become something more. Morning came too soon. Silas woke with Aliren pressed against his side, her breath warm on his neck. Ember was curled at their feet, tail wrapped around both their ankles. He didn't want to move, didn't want to face reality, but survival demanded motion. We need to go, he said quietly. Aliren stirred, Ember eyes opening slowly. For a heartbeat, she looked at him with naked affection. Then awareness crept in, and she pulled back slightly. How are your injuries? Good enough. He sat up, testing his range of motion. We can make the station by nightfall if we push. They prepared in efficient silence. Aliren anticipated his needs without asking. Silas adjusted Ember's carrier. They moved like a unit now. Aliren navigated obstacles with growing confidence, reading the terrain the way Silas had taught her. When she spotted fresh water based on vegetation patterns, pride flickered across his face. You're a natural, he said. I have an excellent teacher. By midday, they crested a ridge and saw it, the research station, its communications array reaching toward the sky. Aliren's breath caught. We made it. But there was grief in her voice, because reaching the station meant rescue. And rescue meant returning to their separate worlds. They descended carefully. The station was in better condition than Silas had hoped. automated system still running. He bypassed the lock, and they entered climate-controlled air. Ember chirped in wonder, running through the corridors. Communications are intact, Silas said, examining the control panel. I can send a distress signal. Then do it. But he hesitated. Once he activated this, everything changed. Silas. Eliren's hand covered his. We knew this moment would come. Doesn't make it easier. No. She pressed close. But we're not ending. We're beginning. Remember? He pulled her into his arms. The kiss was fierce, desperate. I love you, he said. I know it's too fast, too impossible, but I love you too. She cut him off with another kiss. My brilliant, stubborn, impossible human. Ember made a pointed sound. They broke apart to find the cub watching with patient amusement. Silas activated the communications array. The signal burst outward. The response came within 20 minutes. A Volpuri diplomatic vessel was en route. Estimated arrival, 90 minutes. They'll have questions, Illyrin said. They'll see what's between us. Good. Silas met her eyes. I'm not hiding you. She smiled, fierce and beautiful. Neither am I. The proximity alarm chimed. A ship was approaching. They went to the landing pad together, Silas carrying Ember. The Volpuri vessel descended with mechanical grace. The ramp lowered, and Commander Threx emerged with a security detail. He was tall, his red fur streaked with gray. His eyes found Allerin, then lingered on Silas with obvious disdain. Matriarch, Allerin, he said, voice clipped. I am relieved to find you alive. Commander Threx. Allerin stepped forward, spine straight. Co-pilot Silas Grant saved my life and the life of my child. Multiple times. How fortunate. The word dripped with skepticism. Please, board the vessel. Medical is standing by. I want Silas treated as well. Of course, after we see to your needs, Matriarch. The dismissal was clear. Allerin's ears flattened. It's fine, Silas said quietly. Get yourself and Ember checked out. Allerin turned to follow Threx, Ember still in Silas's arms. The cub began to fuss, reaching back for him. When Allerin tried to take Ember, the cub twisted away, clinging to Silas's neck. The chirping became distressed. Ember, please. The cub looked at her and said something in their language, clear and firm. Allerin's breath caught. Frex's eyes widened. What did Ember say? Silas asked. The cub called you Kiroth, Allerin whispered. Father of choice, protector by bond. It's the highest honor a Volpuri child can bestow. Ember has chosen you as family. Threx's expression darkened. This is highly irregular. The child is clearly confused. The child is clear-minded and speaking truth, Allerin said, her voice taking on full authority. I will not board your vessel without Silas Grant. He is Kiroth to my child, and... She paused, lifted her chin. And he is my chosen mate. The silence was absolute. Matriarch, you cannot possibly mean... I mean exactly what I said. Allerin moved to stand beside Silas, taking his hand openly. This human saved us, protected us, showed me strength my people have forgotten. I choose him, Ember chooses him, and I will defend that choice against anyone who questions it. The Council will never accept this, Threx said. Then I will build something new. Allerin's grip tightened. I am Matriarch of the Third House, and I make my own choices. You will treat Silas Grant with the respect due to my mate and Ember's Kiroth. Dex looked between them, seeing the set of Allerin's jaw, the protective way Silas had positioned himself. His ears flattened, but he finally nodded. As you command, Matriarch. Though I warn you, this decision will have consequences. All important decisions do, Allerin said. I'm prepared to face them. They boarded together, Allerin's hand never leaving his. The crew watched with barely concealed shock, but none dared speak against her. In the medical bay, they were treated side by side. When Ember's minor injuries were treated, the cub curled between them on the medical bed, one small hand in Silas's, the other in Alaren's. What happens now? Silas asked quietly. Now we fight, Aliren said, for us, for what we believe, for the future we want to build, together, always together. As the ship prepared for jump, Silas looked at this fierce, beautiful matriarch who'd chosen him against all logic. He looked at the small cub who'd claimed him as family. Whatever came next, political battles, cultural prejudice, the weight of two worlds, they would face it as they faced the jungle, side by side, unbowed, unbreakable. Aliren leaned against his shoulder as the stars blurred outside the V-port. I still think humans are primitive, she murmured. Yeah? Yes. Primitive in all the ways that matter. She tilted her face up to kiss him. Wild, adaptable, real. Everything my people need to remember how to be, I'll show them, Silas promised. We'll show them together. And as the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, 3 survivors held each other close. A human, a matriarch, and a cub who'd chosen love over fear, connection over isolation, and proved that sometimes the most primitive thing of all is also the most advanced, the courage to follow your heart.